Hello and welcome to Chatterbox. This week I'm joined by Emily Hill and Toby Pope. And this week we'll be covering the latest US sensation, Westworld. So, Emily, we'll start with you. What have you made of it so far?
I like the show as it is. I can understand why someone wouldn't like it, but generally the reviews, critics are liking it. The people are liking it. It's getting good reviews here and in America. I like it because of the contrast between you've got the Western part of it and then you've got the modern day, you've got the technology, the future of it, which definitely draws in sort of two sections of viewership, because you've got the people who like the future things, who are into things like Back to the Future, you know, they like that. And then you've got the people who prefer the historical things. What do you think?
For me, I mean, it's very impressive. Like visually, it's very impressive. But then you'd have to expect that of a show that's got such a massive budget. But at the same time, it's a bit too in your face about it. Like you can tell they've really trying to push on you the morality and all this stuff. And a lot of it's just stuff's really graphic, really violent for no other reason than just spectacle. Sort of like The Walking Dead. You know, it's very in your face with violence and graphic imagery.
Well, again, it's the idea that HBO as a production company have done this formula so many times with The Sopranos, Game of Thrones, The West Wing. Do you think that this formula, A, could either get too overused, or B, do you think it will actually be another success like
Personally, I think violence happens in everyday life.
Yeah.
You know, you turn on the TV, the news, you've got violence at you. So what's the problem with using it for entertainment values? I mean, yes, I'm not going to pretend like the rapes, the murders, all of this isn't just like every day for people. So yeah, you are seeing something strange, but you're not going to want to turn on the television and just watch your life. You want to watch something interesting, exciting. You want to watch murders, you want to watch exciting things.
But do you think that possibly people become desensitized to this sort of violence? You know, they made a lot of argument when video games were sort of like becoming very mainstream, that children are watching it and playing it and getting very desensitized to this violence and then actively going out of their way to hurt people. And it's not a great thing to happen, admittedly.
Well, would you say that if you've played a video game and you think you see some violence, you Call of Duty, you're shooting people, do you think, oh, I want to go out and shoot some people now? Or do you think, that was a great game that I just played?
But at the end of the day, my mindset's very different to a child who's very deceptive to these kinds of things, who's very easily coerced into these kind of ideals. I mean, children's minds are so fragile that when they see these kinds of things, it really sort of gets to them, and that's what I'm worried about.
Well, when you look at the audience, obviously, when you talk about children and video games, Westworld was filmed in 1973.
Yeah.
It's now been made into a TV series for today, so it's approaching a very different audience. Have either of you seen the film?
I have. Yeah.
I have not.
Okay, Toby, we'll start with you. Do you think it's an interesting angle to go from film to TV series?
I mean, it's very, very different. I mean, a lot of times when they want to make a sort of TV series from a film or a film from a TV series, there's a very difficult transition, as you've got to think about how do we add cliffhangers at the end of every episode, or how do we sort of fit it all into a 1 hour, 30-minute structure. So they've had to really change up the script a bit. I mean, now, originally the story of Westworld from 1973 focused on people who are actively going into this world, who are newcomers to this Western society, and they had to fight up against these kind of, you know, robots. But now the story actually focuses more on the robots, focuses on their morality, focuses on sort of
The human
questions.
condition.
Absolutely, questions like how human can you make something before it is human, and it's very different.
Well, the premise is the same. You've got the whole idea of them going into the Western world, but from what I understand, the film, there was more than one world. It wasn't just one place they could go to. But what you are going to remember, and because I haven't seen the film, I don't know for certain, but the violence in the series, people who watched the film Westworld and they enjoyed it, they are the kind of people who are going to come and watch the show because they're going to want to compare it to the film. So they'll be a bit older, because say they watched the film at 18 in 1973, they're going to be a lot older now. And you've also got to think the things that people are interested in now are very different to when the film came out. So you've got to keep the premise so that you can still use the name, but you will have to change up what you're using, what you're focusing on. And in 1973, you probably people weren't probably as obsessed with the human condition as people are today. We're forever questioning. There's shows on Channel 4 like Humans. We're always questioning what makes us human, and with the rise of technology, robots, how close are we to having robots in our society? I
think the thing a lot of critics have said, and I agree with, is how it's a bit condescending though, don't you think? It's very condescending to how humanity is, and they overplay a lot of the very negative elements of humanity and of society. So you don't see these people coming into this game and being nice and appreciating this sort of world. You see the people who come into this world and are violent, sexually violent, and just all around horrible people. And it's really just, I think it's too condescending to humanity, and it just gets in your face a bit too much.
Another point that I want to make is that, do you think multi-platforms for a franchise such as Westworld is helpful? Like with the whole film to TV series, you could say, in some respects, you can compare it to Harry Potter, where it went from book to film and so on and so forth. Do you think for a show to be multi-platform and to transfer from one to another, do you think that improves it or makes it worse?
I think there's pros and cons to it all. When you mentioned Harry Potter, the people who have read the books love the books and are okay on the films. The people who have watched the films, they love the films. And it always, I find, comes down to what you found first. For example, The Girl on the Train came out the other week, and I went to see it with my sister. I haven't read the book. She has. I loved the film. She hated it. You know, and with films, you have this ability to show people an image. But with a book, you're creating the image in your brain. It's your imagination. So the way you've imagined something is never going to be how it is on that. So the problem with changing a film to a TV series is that with a film, it's this much, and then you've got a TV series which is this much. You've got a lot more to it. So you have to choose where to cut it, and also how much you have to change it. There's a lot you have to change. I
think the thing is about Westworld, especially, is the same person who wrote Westworld also wrote Jurassic Park. And of course, Jurassic Park is a huge franchise, much, much bigger than Westworld. So would they not make a TV series around Jurassic Park? And then the question is, if they did that, would it be appreciated? Would people say, oh, it's disrespectful to the original film because obviously the writer has unfortunately passed away? Or would people welcome it? And that's the thing you've got to worry about when you're making an adaptation to a film is it respectful to the original source material?
I think with a film like Jurassic Park, you couldn't change that because it's so iconic. You've got films like Pulp Fiction, Back to the Future, things like that. They are iconic. You can't change them from what they are. But with Westworld, I personally hadn't heard of the film until the TV show came out. And so if anything, the TV show is giving more publicity to the film. So with something like that, if you are wanting to change a film to a TV show, you're going to want to pick something that's less heard of so that people aren't like, well, this film's like this is how it should be. Because people, when they like something, they get stuck in their ways. They like it like that.
One question. Do you like it?
Definitely.
Definitely not.
Definitely not.
In my opinion, it's too in your face with the condescending attitudes, and I wouldn't watch it.
Oh, that's all we've got time for. I'd like to thank Emily and Toby for helping me. Until next time, this has been Chatterbox. Goodbye.